folks, we're going to do a little veneering. There's a lot of good reasons to use veneer. One of them is that truly spectacular wood grain like what I have right here. This is some bird's eye, burled, blistered, well, it's just everything, maple. It's just absolutely spectacular. Let's see if we can get this on one of the, try to move this around a little bit so you get a sheen off of it. But it is just a truly spectacular piece of wood. Stuff that is this pretty is extremely rare. And, of course, veneer helps stretch this precious resource. The other thing is that wood that is this disfigured often has stability problems or even strength problems. And by slicing this into thin slices and applying it to a good solid core, you get both strength and beauty. And then finally, one of the neatest reasons to do veneering is because you can take beautiful pieces of veneer like this and arrange it in patterns like this. This is the same veneer right here. This burled stuff is in the field. We put a little inlay there in the middle. There's some banding. You can buy this from most places that sell veneer around the edge, and then the edging around the banding. Makes a wonderful top to a chest, and it really dresses up an otherwise fairly ugly piece of plywood. One of the most important things in veneering is not actually in choosing the veneers. There are a lot of beautiful veneers that you can get. It's in choosing the core, or what you apply the veneer to. MDF, which is this substance, that makes a pretty good core. It's not particularly strong, but it's very, very stable. A good plywood like this makes a good core. Use cabinet grade plywood only, please. This is a nice hardwood core plywood. That's a poplar core in there. You can also you may also want to go to Baltic birch plywood. That is truly stable plywood, very, very strong. The thing that you have to remember is that any imperfections in the core that you're applying the veneer through will telegraph to the veneer. In other words, if there's a bump or a depression in the core, you will see it in the veneer. There will be a slight ghost of it on the veneer. And you want the core surface to be absolutely as smooth as possible. Fill everything with wood putty or Bondo. Sand it down and get it absolutely smooth. Once you've got the core smooth, the next thing to do is rough it up. Really, seriously, the glue that holds veneer to the core will hold better if there are some scratches, and the scratches won't, if they're fine enough, won't telegraph. There used to be a thing called a toothing plane that would put scratches in core. But you could make your own. Simply what I've got here is an old hacksaw blade, and I've sandwiched it in between two pieces of wood. And and I have to clamp it down a little bit now. I'm going to walk off camera for a minute and get a screwdriver. It came loose, so I could show it to you. But there we go. Now you just drag the teeth across the core, a little bit like fingernails on the blackboard. Okay. You drag the teeth across the core and put some scratches in there. And when we get ready to put the adhesive on there, that you'll get a much better mechanical bond. Now, usually you can't get a big enough piece of veneer in order to cover something as big as that piece of plywood I just showed you. Veneer usually comes in narrow strips like the burled maple I showed you, or this pecan. It's often cut from a log, or a flitch as it's called, and these sheets come off in sequence. If you get something with some spectacular grain pattern like that burled maple again, you may want to number the sheets as they're given to you, because that way you'll be able to do book matching and always be able to get patterns like this as close as possible. So this stuff just comes in a packages, and I doubt very seriously whether or not this is the sheets are arranged in alphabetical order, so to speak. In fact, they look like they didn't even come from the same flitch. But nonetheless, it's what we're going to work with today. The first thing that you want to make sure of is that your veneer is relatively flat. This piece of veneer has gotten lumpy. It's wavy and bumpy, and this would not make a good bond. What you need to do if the veneer is bumpy like this, or that maple you saw, that was extremely bumpy. You wipe this down with a wet rag, and then press it between two sheets of plywood for 2 or 3 days. Give it a chance to dry out, and it'll come out perfectly flat. If you need to use it today, you can also iron it with a steam iron, and that'll work too. Some veneer artists like to mix a little wheat paste, wallpaper paste, in their water, and this helps keep the veneer from splitting. And they wipe it on, but if you do that, if you use the wheat paste, be sure to put pieces of nylon screen between the veneer sheets when you press them between the plywood. Otherwise, they'll stick together, because the wheat paste, after all, is paste. So I'm going to, this piece of veneer is not usable right now. It will be in 3 or 4 days, or if I went and got the iron, it could be in a matter of minutes. These two pieces, however, are usable. Now, I need to join these pieces together. Right now, the joint here is not at all perfect. There's a lot of gaps showing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap these two pieces where I want them to join, and I'm going to tape them together so that they don't move. Just little pieces of tape. Now, I want you to know that I'm not using masking tape. This isn't masking tape. This is drafting tape. Masking tape has an aggressive adhesive that, if you pull it up, may actually pull some of the wood fibers and parts of the veneer with it. Drafting tape doesn't have as much acumpunky as masking tape does, and it's a lesser grab. So now I'll take a straight edge. It's a good idea, if you can, because this takes a little time, to clamp this straight edge down. Let me get a couple clamps here. Pardon for vacating the scene. And one more. There we go. Okay, we're ready to cut this. This is a veneer knife. It looks like a little saw, but it's not. It's actually a toothed knife blade, you just simply it's not set. You can't feel any set there. You simply put the teeth up against the straight edge and drag this across the veneer. It'll take a couple times. In fact, I'm going to do a section at a time here. It does not matter at all whether or not my straight edge is actually straight. Even if it has a slight bow to it, because I'm cutting both sheets at once, cutting right through the overlap, they'll both match. Okay, there's one. Okay, there's a nice tight seam. Now, before we can glue these together, or put these together, we've got to find out the face of the veneer, the part you want showing, and the back of the veneer. When these sheets of veneer are cut, they're cut with a knife. And as the knife cuts, it puts in some tiny checks, and the checked surface is what you want to use as the back of the veneer. To find the checked surface, you simply take a sheet and you roll it. You'll notice that one way where you roll this parallel to the grain, it's very easy to roll. If you go the other way, it's stiffer, much stiffer. And you can tell that this is the back. This is the side that we want to glue. So we'll put that side down. Okay, that side down. Fortunately, my everything is still relatively straight there. Now, you can use masking tape, or not masking tape, drafting tape, to assemble this. There's also gummed veneer tape, which must be put down and wetted. That dissolves the gum, then you let it dry. I simply prefer the drafting tape because it's faster, and as I said, the drafting tape doesn't have as much stickum as masking tape. Now, it's fairly easy to hold two pieces of wood together, but if we were assembling 3 or 4 sheets, we might want to stick them down here with some veneer pins. These are extremely sharp, and they make very small holes. You just push them down and they'll push into the MDF slightly and hold these sheets in place while you tape them together. The little holes will go away simply by wetting the veneer after it's been glued in place. The water makes the veneer swell up, of course, and then and the hole just disappears. Let's go ahead and finish taping here. Now, depending on the assembly that you're making here, you may actually want to put some cross pieces in like this, just to give it a little bit more strength. On complex glue-ups, I've had the whole surface covered with drafting tape at one time or another. Now, the seam here needs to be glued by itself before you can glue this to your core. You simply, if you pick it up, it will fold right there at the seam. At this point, you can put a little veneer glue in there and wipe it off, level it. Don't worry, this is the side that gets stuck down to the board. This is the back of the veneer. So if you get glue on it, it's not going to interfere with the finish. While we're on the subject of glue, this is a plastic resin that is made especially for veneer. If you use ordinary wood glues like vinyl, white glue, or aliphatic resin glue, which is yellow glue, those may bleed through the veneer. Remember, this stuff is somewhere between a 64th and a 32nd of an inch thick. It's not very thick, and especially like this is pecan. It's an open grain, and the glue will come through it. There are glues that are made especially for veneering. This is one of them. It's a plastic resin. You mix it with water and then simply paint it on the back of the veneer and stick it down. Some veneer artists also like to work with old-fashioned hide glue. Hide glue is an extremely good veneer glue, and for a reason that you can't necessarily get with the plastic with some of the plastic resin glues. You put a thin coat of hide glue on both surfaces, put it down, clamp it in place, let it dry. Let's say a year from now, suddenly part of the veneer lets go, it bubbles up. You can take a hot iron and put a cloth over it to protect the veneer so you don't burn it, and heat it up. The hide glue goes thermoplastic and it goes back together again. You can repair that veneer ad infinitum until you're blue in the face and whenever it comes up. This particular plastic resin also has some thermoplastic properties. You can do it. I don't have enough experience with this yet to tell you whether it's as good as hide glue, but I would opt for a glue that has that property simply because it's a great way to patch things if you didn't get them fully stuck down, which is what I'm going to discuss next. Gluing veneer. And I'm not going to do this right now because it just takes an enormous amount of time. Okay, and a whopping big jig. This is what I'm about to put up here is a veneer press, and it's something that you can easily make yourself. There you go. It's just a sheet of particle board here, and the particle board is held perfectly flat by a bunch of 2x4s. In these between these 2x4s are these beams, but these beams are actually slightly shaped. I don't know if you can see it on your small screen, but they're arced. This side has a 1/4 inch rise in the middle. This side has an 1/8 inch rise in the middle. The reason for this is if I were to press down the veneer with flat beams, let's go back to our core here. Okay, let's put this. If we put this core, I'm going to slide it under several of these beams. Okay? Now, if we were to clamp this down flat, what would happen is I would get a lot of pressure right at the edges, but then the beam would bow up, and I get almost no pressure in the middle. With this system, I simply clamp it down until the beam actually bends slightly and is in full contact. That way I have an even pressure across the width of the veneered core. If I wanted to get more pressure, or if I wanted to get less pressure, I would use the surface with the 1/8 inch bow, this surface. If I wanted to get more pressure, I would use the surface with the 1/4 inch bow, this surface. Nifty little jig there. Very easy to make. Just need a bandsaw and a lot of these are made from maple, but you can use oak, ash, any hardwood will do. The glue must go on evenly, and it's usually a good idea to apply it for both surfaces. A very thin coat, very even. Once it's on with this thermoplastic resin, you have about 10-15 minutes to position the veneer. Another reason I like this, you don't nearly get that time with hide glue. Once it's positioned, you put it in the press, press it down, let it sit for a full day before you take it out. There are a couple things that you may need that come in handy when you're putting the veneer on. This is a veneer roller. You put the veneer on, get it positioned, and roll this back and forth to get the surface perfectly smooth and to even out the distribution of glue. It'll also tell you if there's any lumps that you may have to do. This is the older version of the same thing. This is a veneer hammer. As it comes to you, it's not quite ready to use. You need to polish this edge, and you simply use the veneer hammer like this. You just drag it back and forth over the veneer like a big squeegee. Because this is rounded right here, it concentrates a tremendous amount of force right there at the contact point. Squeezes out the glue and any bubbles or anything else. That's it. It's pretty easy, and it's a nice technique, especially what you can do when you start assembling your own patterns. I'll take questions here for a few minutes, and then I'll tell you what's coming up next in Sawdust session number 5. Get some water. All right. Okay. Folks, thanks for coming. Drew, could you switch this to the middle camera? I can't quite see my cheat sheet from here. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for coming. And thank you, Katie. Yes. That's all for now. Drew and I are going to go out and beat his plumbing to death. Try to install a bathroom. Our next Sawdust session is October the 13th. We're going to do overarm router part 3. We'll show you how to make decorative shapes and moldings. Going to do a little planing, show you some tricks for using the planer to get the smoothest possible surface. Sanding, 3 dimensions on a belt sander nonetheless. Yes, I know it's made for flat sanding. There are some neat accessories that you can get for a belt sander that allow you to do 3-dimensional shapes and get into tiny gaps and crevices. It's really worth watching because there is nothing than sanding. And finally, we're going to turn some absolutely perfectly straight tapers. I'll show you how to do that too. I hope to see you there or on some other future Sawdust session. And as always, work well, work safe, and work to your heart's content. Bye.